Hey there, welcome back to the channel, all you gorgeous people. Hope you're having a fantastic day. And today, we're jumping into r/entitled people, where someone deals with a family that keeps parking in their driveway, so they decide to get a bit creative with their revenge. So if you haven't yet, subscribe and let's jump right in. Entitled mom calls in a noise complaint in the middle of a hurricane. I live in Atlantic Canada, and we were just hit by Hurricane Dorian. Not as bad as the Bahamas, they certainly have it a lot worse than us. But needless to say, power went out in our neighborhood. We have a generator, however, so when the power went off, we just went out and turned it on. Of course, it's a little loud, but we weren't going to have it running during the night. Shortly after we turned it on, we received a knock on our door. We were concerned something happened to our neighbor, so we opened it. "Are you okay?" said my mom. "I'm fine. I can't get my baby back to sleep," replied the entitled mom. "Winds are kind of loud, maybe bring her to the basement," my mom suggested. "She slept through worse weather. The problem is your generator out back." "Oh, sorry about that. We don't want to lose the dog food we have in the freezer, so we turned it on." "Turn it off." "What?" "Turn off your generator. You are being extremely rude." "No, it's really not that loud compared to the wind, and we have raw dog food in our freezer." "Fine," said the entitled mom. And with that, the entitled mom ran back to her house. We thought that would be the end of it, but of course, that would be a boring story. About 4 hours later, the eye of the storm was passing over us. We used this time to go out and refill the generator. As my brother turned it off, there was another knock at the door. I thought it would be the neighbor again, but instead, it was a police officer. He had received a report that we were purposely banging the walls and playing music so loud the neighbor could hear it through the walls, since we're in a duplex. Of course, we explained to the officer the encounter with entitled mom early through the storm and apologized to him. He was thankfully cool and explained that even during such a hurricane, they were required to respond to even minor things. Unfortunately, by the time we resolved the issue with the officer, the eye had passed and the winds had picked up again. The main street was closed again due to the high winds and risk of flooding and waves. The officer was advised to stay on our side street, so we invited him in for some coffee and to play some cards, but not before he went to our neighbor and gave them a chewing out. We were going to offer extension cables to our two neighbors to help keep their freezers and fridges running, but after that encounter with the neighbor, we decided to use the second line we had for our television and game console instead. You know, out of all the times for a Karen to abuse the 911 system, this would be one of the worst times to do it. Calling out an officer in the middle of a hurricane and basically making him risk his life for nothing. Not even to mention that she's taking away resources from people that might actually need help. Stealing a homeless person's dog. So I used to work for this absolute piece of crap a couple years ago. This story isn't about her, but she's a part of it. So one of the chiropractors she hired, we'll call him Dr. Douchebag, and his girlfriend we'll call Dr. Buttface, were out on a drive when Dr. Douche noticed a homeless woman with a beautiful German Shepherd. He and Dr. Buttface pulled over to talk to her about the dog. They end up befriending her over a couple months, and she tells them she's going to have to go to the hospital and needs to have her dog go somewhere. So Dr. Douche offers to house her dog while she's in the hospital, and will give it back when she gets out. She, having literally no other choice, agrees. Well, she gets out of the hospital and calls him to get her dog back, and he tells her no. He tells her she gave him the dog, and she doesn't deserve it anyway with her being homeless. She started calling the office, demanding her dog back, and was told no over and over again. She had a community/charity that would buy her dog food and bring her hot meals. The charity found out this man had stolen her dog and wouldn't return it, so they physically went to the office to get the dog back. That's when my former boss got into an altercation with them and started shouting, "Effing liberals," and tried shoving them down the stairs. The cops were called, but they can't do anything in this situation as it's now a civil matter, but they are not allowed back on the property. They made flyers and distributed them in town, but the only real way to get the dog back is to go to court, which she can't afford. I've been homeless. Without my dog, I would have killed myself, and it just makes me mad that they think homeless people can't take care of animals. My dog ate better than me most days. There isn't really a happy ending to this story, but I hope she gets her dog back. And here's an edit. I have contacted the charity/community that's helping her out, but haven't gotten a response yet. I have been informed that I can post the flyer since it was posted publicly. So here's the flyer without the info blacked out. And let's take a look at that flyer. Dog thief. It's not okay to steal someone's animal companion. Jordan Smith stole a dog from a woman we know. He met this woman when she was in distress in a public place. He appeared to befriend her. He offered to host her dog while she visited a hospital. Friends who were with her did not trust him, but she was in such distress that she accepted. After she came out of the hospital, Jordan Smith refused to return her dog and insisted he was rescuing her dog from her. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because most of it was already covered in the story, but feel free to pause if you want to read this yourself. But I'm getting a good kick out of this because he's now getting publicly shamed, and I hope he receives a lot of backlash for this now that his name and face is out there. But most importantly, I really just hope this poor woman gets her dog back. And if any of you guys want to reach out to this business and give them a piece of your mind about this guy, feel free to do so. Who knows, it may actually help. Family assumes my driveway is a free parking spot. This happened to me a few years ago. I had recently moved to the north of Scotland, where I now live, and was staying with my mom and stepdad while getting a house sorted. They went away on holiday for a fortnight, so missed all the fun. I came home from work one afternoon, started at 4 a.m. and finished at 1:30 p.m. to find a car blocking the driveway into my house. Having a small car, I parked at the top of the drive, blocking them in. My parents live out in the sticks on a single track road, so I couldn't leave my car where it was because I would have been blocking the road. After an hour, I saw someone approaching the driveway and taking pictures of my car. I went out and confronted them, and the conversation went like this. Why are you taking pictures of my car? Because you're parked illegally and blocking my car in. I'm going to call the police if you don't move your car from my neighbor's driveway. This is my parents' driveway. Did you not think it was odd having to walk through someone's garden to get here? Well, it wasn't very clear, so you can move it so I can get out. So I get my keys and move, then park my car and think nothing of it. Next morning, I leave for work, and once again, I find the same car parked in my parents' driveway. This time, I go knock on my neighbor's door and ask him to get his friend to move it, only for my neighbor to ask, "What friend?" I pointed to the car and told him what had happened yesterday. Turns out, the Pratt wasn't his friend at all, but liked to walk around the woodland path near our houses. 20 minutes later, he finally appears, smirks, and moves, before saying, "I'll be parked here tomorrow too." So once again, I go to work at stupid o'clock, and when I get back, lo and behold, the Pratt has parked there again. This time, I decided to teach him a lesson. I had 2 days off, so I went to the shops and got some shopping, and a rather large amount of alcohol, Strongbow and Savannah Dry Cider if you're interested. I got home, parked as close to his car as I could, making sure I was safely off the road. I went inside, made some dinner, and started drinking. About an hour later, there's a banging on the door. "Yes?" I said. "Move your car, it's blocking me in and my family wants to go home." I look out and there's his rather embarrassed looking family sitting in their car. "Sorry, can't," I say as I took another drink from my cider. Been drinking for a couple of hours, probably over the limit, so I don't want to risk it. "What? Why are you drinking when you knew I'd be wanting to move my car?" I'm off for the next 2 days, so I fancied a drink. "I'm calling the effing police." "You do that," I said before shutting the door and popping into the lounge to watch TV while also watching them through the window. Apparently, the police had trouble finding my house. About 2 hours later, the police arrive and speak to the entitled person before they knock on my door. "Yes, officers, how can I help?" "Why are you stopping entitled person from leaving?" they asked. So I began explaining the events of the previous days, and mentioned how I'd told him he couldn't park here. I also explained that I had been drinking, and was probably over the limit, so I couldn't risk moving my car. Both the officers agreed that I was correct to not drive while intoxicated. They then asked what insurance I had. I pointed out that it's named driver only, which basically means that only people whose name is on the insurance can drive my car, so they couldn't move it for me. "Come on, just make him move his car," said the entitled person. "Just going to get the breathalyzer. Blow into this, please." I blow into it and he says, "You're about 2 times the legal limit, so I'm sorry, but you can't move your car." The officer then says to the entitled person, "Sorry, but he's over the limit. You'll have to leave your car here and come back tomorrow." "What? But how are we meant to get home?" And I say, "The bus stop is about 2 miles down that road. You'll get the bus to blank city at this time or blank town at this time. But the bus doesn't go anywhere near where we live." "We can call you a taxi if you want, but you'll need to pay for it," said the officer. He did this deliberately. Yup, I agreed. Fast forward to the next day. The police arrive with him in their car, and before they ask me to move my car, they decided to have some fun. "We just want to check you with the breathalyzer again." Big deep breath. Entitled person starts looking more and more worried. "You're fine. Can you move your car, please?" "Of course, officers." The officer then says to the entitled person, "Don't park your car here again." Entitled person couldn't even look at me, just got in his car and drove off. Later that day, I decided to build a gate for my parents. What I love about this is how OP just confidently admits he did it deliberately, because obviously he's not doing anything wrong. It just so happened that he decided to get drunk on his day off. Karen yells at white girl for speaking a Native American language. This story happened to me and my best friend. For some background, I am Native American. My mom is from a Plateau tribe and my dad is Plains tribe. I grew up learning both languages. Since my best friend was always at my house and also grew up on the reservation, she was surrounded by the language and culture. Now, my best friend, who I'll call Mandy, is white. By the time we both left high school, Mandy could speak both my tribal languages as well as any tribal member. I have this habit, whenever I get excited or emotional, I speak one of my tribal languages. This is a habit that Mandy picked up as well. Now, the story happens in a department store that sells food and other goods. I had to grab something in electronics, and Mandy went to the grocery section to stock up on junk food. She was reaching for some chips when multiple bags fell and she yelled in a Native American language. A woman I'll call Karen overhears and walks up to Mandy and starts lecturing her about speaking gibberish and setting a bad example for children that could be nearby. Mandy explained that she was speaking a Native American language of a local tribe. This set the woman off even more. Karen started going off on how it was wrong for Mandy being white and speaking that language. Karen said Mandy was racist and to stop pretending and whatnot. I happened to come in at the tail end and ask what the problem was. Karen saw that I was Native American and told me I should stay away from that racist trash. I started to get very up after that, but tried to remain calm. I just said, "Miss, this is my best friend, and though we don't share blood, she is my family. She grew up on the reservation with me, so of course she knows our culture and language. How is her learning my culture and language any different than people who learn Spanish or French? Furthermore, military families that live overseas that pick up a second language." I don't know if Karen understood anything I was saying, because her face didn't change. She just turned and walked away. People like this are so confusing to me, because they try so hard to look not racist, like they're standing up for someone's culture and identity, but then they just come off as super ignorant. Newsflash, Karen, learning a language is not racist. Well, my friends, that is it for today's episode. If you enjoyed, drop a like, and also subscribe. As always, I hope you all have an incredible day, and I'll see you next time.